Hello, welcome to our August episode of Bookies TV. I'm Jo Hansen, one of the Reader's Advisors at Cook Memorial Public Library. I'm here with Karen Varga, another one of our Reader's Advisors. Today we have 4 great books to recommend that deal with relationships. And now I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk about her first pick.
Thank you. Basically, I read 2 books that are both romances and both deal with main characters in the publishing industry. And if I had to describe them, I'd say they have a lot of differences. But if I used a flavor to describe the books, I would call one sweet and the other one spicy. So I'm going to start out with sweet. And the book is called By the Book, and it's by Jasmine Guillory. And the main character, her name is Izzy, and she's working as an editorial assistant, and she's been in this job forever. And she's always having to put on a smile for everyone, even though she's not really happy in her position. She wants to be an editor. One of her jobs is contacting and nagging Bo Towers because he is supposed to be writing a memoir, and it's been months and months and months, and he hasn't submitted anything. While she is on a conference in LA, she decides that maybe one way to impress her bosses is to go visit him personally and give him that nudge that he needs to actually write the memoir. So she travels to his house. And when she is there, she does not originally get a chance to even talk to him. She instead gets to talk to his assistant, Michaela. And Michaela is an assistant and a cook for Bo. And Michaela walks her out and in the process ends up spraining her ankle. So Izzy walks her back in, and this is when she actually gets to meet Bo. And so she starts giving her pitch and telling him that she will help him. She'll give him a pep talk every day. She'll do everything that she can to help him write this memoir. And he agrees, but he makes a deal. He says, in order to do this, you need to stay in my house and every morning personally give me this pep talk. Well, she realizes that he's just trying to scare her away, but there's no way she's going to give in. So she ends up staying. So they start out with a rather hostile relationship. He's very rude and she's just determined. It changes into a working relationship. Then from there, it changes to a friendship as they learn more about each other. And then it eventually moves into dating situations. And it does end up having a happy ending. When I started this book, I did not realize what was on the back cover of the book. It is supposed to be a reimagining of a fairy tale. And I'm not going to tell you which fairy tale it is, but once you realize that, it all becomes very clear which fairy tale it was supposed to be. And this is part of a series by Disney called Meant to Be. So maybe you'll want to try that one, Jo, even though I know you're not usually much of a romance person.
Yeah, you're right about that. It takes a lot to get me to read a romance, but that does sound intriguing. So maybe you'll convince me on that one.
So what kind of relationship is in your book, Jo?
Well, my book is about 2 really good friends, and it asks the question, can a man and a woman be like best friends and love each other, but not be in a, in an intimate relationship? And this book is called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And it just came out July 5. Now, Zevin is a favorite author of our patrons and book club readers with her first book called The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. And that beloved book, had made the rounds in all our book clubs, and I loved it. And her new book, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, has received 3-starred reviews from Library Journal, Kirkus, and Publishers Weekly. And the great author John Green says it's one of the best books he's read, so that's pretty high praise. And mark my word now, it's going to be on a lot of best book lists at the end of the year. Now, the two protagonists are Sam Mazer and Sadie Green. They meet as kids in 1990s in a hospital. Sam is at the hospital after a horrible car accident that killed his mother and mangled his foot. And Sadie is there because her older sister is trying to fight cancer. And a nurse could see Sadie was just so bored and nothing to do, because her mom made her go there every day. And the nurse said, why don't you go in the break room? There's a game console in there, you can play games. And this is the 1990s, you're talking like some of the earlier games. She gets in there and she sees Sam, who's already playing. And he looks up at her, and he hasn't talked to anyone since he got in the hospital, but he asks Sadie, do you want to play a game with me? And so they start playing, and they develop this friendship over games. And it lasts pretty much through high school until there's this huge misunderstanding. And suddenly Sam refuses to talk to Sadie anymore. So they go their different ways. And then they end up at college, both in Boston. He's at Harvard and she's at MIT. So both very brilliant kids. And they meet up again and start their friendship again. And they end up developing this hugely popular video game called Ishigo. And it turns out by the time they're 25, they are successful and rich from this game. And they start a company together. But this book is like really literary fiction spanning 30 years. Sam and Sadie have a creative partnership as intense and fraught as a marriage. And Sadie has commented, when she was thinking about why she didn't have an intimate relationship with Sam, she said, lovers are common, but true collaborators in this life are rare. And their relationship is tested over time by jealousy, misunderstandings, and ambition. Sadie is one of the few females in the gaming world, in the industry. And she feels often that Sam is trying to take credit for her work, which makes her really start resenting him. And Sam, he just wants to be loved by his friends and by the fans, so he can forget about his disability and the pain from losing his mother, because he always has that in the back of his mind. Now, you don't need to be a gamer to like this book. There's references to the Oregon Trail, that famous computer game from the 90s, and my kids played that, and it's like, I remember they'd play it and I was always in the game, and Joe got bit by a rattlesnake, or you've been killed by dysentery, and that was kind of fun to relive some of those moments. But I'm not a gamer, but nevertheless, I enjoyed the gaming background. It kind of gave me a new look at how creative the process is of making video games. And if you are a gamer, you will love this book. And Zevin, the author, calls herself a lifelong gamer, so she has this background that she drew upon. Now, for read-alikes for this book, it's kind of tough because it's kind of a unique book. The one thing that came to mind to me was one I read recently, historical fiction called Lessons in Chemistry, and which is about a woman in a male-dominated world trying to achieve success. So if you like Lessons in Chemistry, you might like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. So if you like coming-of-age books featuring genuine, flawed characters, try Gabrielle Zevin's new book. So what's your next book, Karen?
My next book is called Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and it's very popular right now. I know you've read it, Joe.
I did. It's one of the few romances I've really liked.
Yeah, this is what I would call my spicy book. So the main character of this one, once again, in the publishing industry, but she's a literary agent. So she's already pretty successful, and she's doing it right now for the money. She has actually been kind of responsible for helping out her little sister ever since their mother passed away. And so she's in this job for the money. And they call her the shark, which I just loved. That was just fantastic because, she's very good at what she does. And if you're not, with her, then you better beware, I guess. That's my interpretation of what a shark is. But the beginning starts out, she's very good at her job, but she's not good with relationships. Every relationship she tries to have falls apart. And in the very beginning, she's being broken up with over the phone. And she's on her way to an appointment. And of course, she runs late. And who is she meeting? She is meeting Charlie. And he is a very hot editor. And she's trying to sell him on a book that she needs to publish. But the difficulty is he doesn't like the book. And there is no way that he's going to edit it. And to be truthful, she has to push this book, but it's not her favorite either. And that's how, it starts out introducing Nora and Charlie to us as a reader. But now if we flash forward, we have a situation where Nora is talked into a vacation by her sister, who, by the way, loves the book that eventually got published and became very, very popular and is famous. And her sister talks her into going to a place called Sunshine Falls. She says she wants to go on a vacation with her. And Sunshine Falls is the setting of the book that was just published. So she goes with her sister to Sunshine Falls, and her sister has a list of what we have to do, a life-changing vacation list. And so she starts doing this list for her sister, trying to make her sister happy. And who does she end up meeting? She ends up meeting Charlie. Apparently, Charlie is from Sunshine Falls. And that's why that's part of the reason he really didn't like the book, because he doesn't like Sunshine Falls. So this is how they end up meeting each other again. And this is when the sparks kind of start to fly. And you find out that they truly do have a chemistry. And every time they get close to, shall I say it euphemistically, knocking boots, something happens and they can't go through with it. Either one of them's like, oh no, I have this coming up, or oh, we shouldn't do this because we're both in the publishing industry. There's always some reason that they shouldn't finish what they've started. And so it just keeps that romantic tension, that chemistry building. And I don't want to give you too much of the story, but in the end, it has a very successful ending, I would say. And maybe more realistic than some endings that you would get. And so it was a fun, spicy romance novel. And I ended up actually listening to that one at the same time that I was reading the other one. And really, when you put them both together, they really make a very satisfying combination. I liked it. It was really fun. So I definitely recommend both of these books.
Yeah, book lovers, what I loved most about it was the dialogue. It was such snappy dialogue between the two characters. And just the banter back and forth. They're both snarky and kind of, putting each other down a little bit. And it's just really fun. And like I said, I don't read many romances, but I try to read a couple once in a while for work, so I can recommend some. And yeah, you're right. It's really, really good.
Yeah, one of the funny things about it is they actually end up, Charlie and Nora actually end up being very much similar. There's a lot that they have in common, and they both really, really care about their families. And really, it's because of their families that they've come together, because they both are trying to take care of their families, and it's their families too that's kind of like holding them apart. So it was a very fun read. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you're right. It's just going through the staff. So many staffers have read it now. So that's
Yeah.
definitely going to be on our favorites at the end of the year when I put the favorite booklets together. This will be in there.
You know what's really funny, Joe, is I was only able to get it because I listened to it on Libro FM, the audio version. I actually did not have a hard copy. And the way that I found a hard copy was I came across another one of the staff members who was reading it. And she was just finishing it. And I said, can I have your hard copy? I need it for her book talk. So yes, it is very popular right now.
I like listening to audiobooks too, but I always like to get my hands on a hard copy of the book sometimes, just because, sometimes you might miss something in the audio, or it's just nice to go back and look at things. So I do that a lot with both audio and the hardcover book.
It's just hard to get a hold of right now,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it sure is. If you want book lovers, you got to put it on hold right now, I think, but it'll be worth your wait.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, the next book, my second book is, I guess it's not quite a romance, because technically I asked Erica O'Rourke, our expert on romances, what a romance specifically is. And she said, it always, always, always has to have a happily ever after ending. So this next book, it might have a happily ever after ending, but it's kind of open-ended. I'm not sure if it's going to, but there's hints that it might. So it's not quite technically a romance, but it's definitely a book about relationships. Now, my next book is called Flying Solo by Linda Holmes. This is her second book after her very popular romance, Evie Drake Starts Over. And Flying Solo came out last month, so it's a new book. Now, Linda Holmes, you might recognize the name too. She's a pop culture correspondent for NPR, and she's one of the hosts of the podcast Pop Culture Happy Hour. Now, her protagonist is Laurie Sasselin, who has always adored her great aunt Dot, who remains single her whole life while traveling and having adventures. When Dot dies in her 90s, Laurie leaves her home in Seattle and returns to her small town in Maine to clean out Dot's house. And it turns out this small town is also the small town that Evie Drake Starts Over takes place in. So that's kind of fun. And you get to know this town a little better, and you really want to go there. I did. But the trip back home gives Laurie the opportunity to take a step back and think about where she wants her life to go. She has just broken off her engagement, and her upcoming 40th birthday is causing her a lot of angst. Where is she going to go with her life now? Does she want to think about getting married or not, being like her Aunt Dot? So her best friend June and her old high school boyfriend Nick help Laurie go through 90 years of stuff that Aunt Dot saved. Now, Nick, of course, is hotter than ever than he was in high school. And he's also now the head librarian at the little library in town that his parents had run for many years. So he's really determined to stay in the town and make the library a success and not let it close. But of course, he is still in love with Laurie after all these years. And, they kind of strike up another relationship. And I think, he would like her to stay there and be with him. And of course, she's like, well, I kind of want to be like Aunt Dot, a free, independent woman with no ties to anybody. So that's a large part of the book. But there's also a side mystery. Laurie discovers a beautiful hand-carved duck decoy among Dot's possessions. Where did it come from? Was it made by one of the famous duck decoy artists of the time? And she has a professional declutterer named Matt come in to help with all the stuff. And he assures her the duck decoy is worthless. But he said, well, I'll give you $50 for it. When Laurie discovers that Matt has nefarious intentions, she and her friends band together to solve the mystery and get that duck back. So Rita likes, there's a book I read by Katherine Heine called Early Morning Riser, which is in a small town and full of quirky characters. So that could, if you read that one, Early Morning Riser, you would like this one. But generally, like Flying Solo, if you like charming, funny books with likable characters and small town charm, give Flying Solo a try.
Flying Solo sounds fun. I kind of like the concept of reading a book and then a town is in it, and then you read another book and the same town is in it. You kind of get to fall in love with all the characters, and like you said, you fall in love with the town.
Yes.
And quirky is always good.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people who ask me for quirky books.
And I grew up in a really small town in Wisconsin, so I think small town fiction really appeals to me, and, you know, kind of quirky, funny characters, but nice characters too. I have to admit, sometimes when I'm reading a book and I don't like any of the people, it's really hard for me to like the book.
Oh, yeah,
You know?
definitely. You
Yeah,
have to be able to relate to at least one of the characters.
exactly. And sometimes you just can't. But you know, but Linda Holmes, all her characters are lovely. So, you know, I'd recommend both her books.
I think you also, Early Riser, didn't you also do a review of that on Shelf Life?
I did, yes, I did, and that was a funny book because one of the main characters, he's kind of a ladies' man, but not like the way you'd think. Women are attracted to him, and they're always trying to go out with him, and then finally, when he does meet this one woman who he really likes, they end up getting married, and she keeps going around town saying, "Oh yeah, I dated your husband." So it's really kind of awkward for her, but you know, but I love the book because it's like how you can make relationships with other people, and you almost create new families with the people you meet in town. So that one I really liked a lot too. So that's very good. You remembered I reviewed that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Come see us at the Farmers Market through September 22nd at our Lucy booth, where we can share more good reads. You also can visit us at our Bookies page at www.cooklib.org/bookies, where you can fill out a form and we will give you a customized reading list based on your likes. So enjoy the rest of your summer. Bye-bye.
Bye.